What is up, guys? We've got the 7.3 in the shop. It's leaking diesel. If you've been around 7.3s, you know they tend to leak diesel. You got the fuel pump and the fuel bowl are common leaking points. So today we're going to be doing the Marty's e-fuel kit. We'll get rid of the fuel bowl and the pump, and then we'll run, it's an electric pump, better filtration, and then it's got a regulator up top. Cleans up the engine bay a bit too. Not as much, you don't have as many lines. Get rid of the fuel bowl and the pump. So, yep, we'll get to it. All right, so in the kit, you're gonna get these billet housings. I got the Bosch pump, which you really only run close to stock injectors with. On my other 7.3, I've got the Walboro pump. They did come out with this new design, which I actually like a bit better. It's got these two billet housings, and then they've got more stout brackets. The other one kind of wobbles around a bit. This one looks like we're gonna not have that issue anymore. Here are the type of filters you're running. Better filtration, water separator. You're gonna get tons of hose. Comes with new. These are for the lines that run to the head if yours are leaking. On my other rig and this rig, they're not leaking, so I just left them. But here's your relay. So we'll put power to the pump. Let's see. Here's your regulator. You'll have your regulator with a gauge on it. Runs around 60 psi. There's not much to it. It's a very well thought out kit. It's really easy. I got my other one done with about like a night's worth of work, and it was all finished. But yeah, we'll get to it. All right, so first we're gonna start out. We're gonna remove this cover, which these aren't very common. I don't have one on my other truck because I actually broke it. But yeah, so we'll get this cover removed, and then we'll take off we'll get rid of the fuel bowl. Right here. Well, these are 1/2-inch bolts. Oh man, that are apparently gonna be in there really fucking tight. Okay, I'm gonna get some more leverage on this. This fuel bowl out and talk about it so you can kind of understand a little bit more if you don't already. All right, guys, so here's your fuel bowl. You're gonna have two 1/2-inch bolts holding it in there. Your main things you need to take off to get this thing out is you're gonna have a line here, a connector here. So the way this thing sits in the truck, if you're looking at it from the front of the truck, you've got 2 1/2 inches in the back. You've got one hose here, connector up front, and these are your 2 lines that are under the head. After that, you got, I can't remember what this is. So we got your supply line. This runs from the tank, which we're gonna cut out. We're gonna cut that out. And then this runs to the fuel pump, and this one does as well. I think they both run to the fuel pump, these 2 here. So yeah, you just gotta loosen this one up, and then you can yank that out of there. Yeah, these aren't the best. You gotta toss these. Go to e-fuel. All right, so now we're in the engine bay. I just wanted to show you guys a few things. If you look down in here, it's always a mess. Like, I don't know where, from rats, something. My other 7.3 was even worse than this one. They're both from Oregon, so I don't know if that's got to do anything with it, but yeah, you got all that. I recommend, you know, getting this valley all cleaned out, nice and neat. But yeah, so moving on, you've got, these are your two headlines. You're going to use those. Those actually tie into the regulator. This is a nice kit. You don't really, it's super easy. And then these two, your supply and your return line, you're going to cut these out. You're going to have all new fuel lines from close to the tank, from the selector valve. So, and then, yeah, we're about to pull this pump out. And one thing about, well, yeah, get this cleaned out first, because once you get this pump out, you got to grab, there's a lobe that I'm assuming rides on the cam that pumps the fuel pump. So we're about to pop that out, and you've got one line in the back that has the two lines that run to the rear of the head. I forget what size that is. Most people, I've seen a few people make custom wrenches to get that out, that bolt loose, the banjo bolt. But in my case, I haven't, on the last one, I haven't made a custom wrench. I was able to just get it off with the regular, it was just a Harbor Freight wrench. So, yeah, so now we're about to get this pump out. And after that, we can just start throwing in the goodies. We'll get this pump out, cut these lines out, clean this out, and then we can start throwing in some of the goodies, and then we'll move to the bottom of the truck after this. Yeah. All right. Here's our banjo bolt. 1 1/4. So now that we got the banjo bolt off, time for the fuel pump. And with the fuel pump, we've got, I can't remember what size. I'll tell you guys in a minute, but when I figure it out. But when you got to rock it back and forth, kind of, and make sure you got like a magnet or something to catch that lobe, so it doesn't, that rod, so it doesn't fall into the engine. So, yeah, we'll get that going in a minute. And first thing I do after that is I grab the freeze plug that comes in the kit. I'll show you guys in a minute. We'll get the freeze plug and then we'll tap that in there so we don't drop any debris or whatever into the block. So, we'll get to it. All right, so mine, in some cases, like this, was seized in there. I'll get out of the truck and I'll show you guys this. Or I guess I could just show you here. So this, see how that was stuck in there? I had to pull it out. It's not typically how it is. Normally, that could possibly fall out. But in this case, that's not it. So, all right. Let's get this pump out of here. All right. Here is our freeze plug. This is in the fuel replacement bag. So the way that I do this, lay that on in there like that, and then grab yourself a socket that fits in it good. Let's see. I'll just use that. Actually, no, we don't want to do that because we want to have a 9/16. Maybe this half inch will work. So here's what it looks like with fuel pump out. Well, yeah, everything's removed, fuel bowl and fuel pump. And then we've got the freeze plug in there now. So I just tap that on in there. Make sure you don't hit it too far. Get that set in there. And all right, let's get this all cleaned up here, and then we'll start getting your fuel pump replacement, which goes on that left-hand thread right there. It'll bolt up there. At least that's how my last kit was. It might be different because it's a new Marty's kit. And the regulator will bolt up to these two here. And it'll look pretty sweet. Get this all cleaned up. All right, so this is what you're kind of looking for. Well, I mean, I guess it doesn't really matter, but you know, get that, all that stuff's out of there, all degreased, so you know, keep it all clean so it doesn't keep collecting dirt. Shouldn't leak after this. I mean, it might leak oil up here soon, but won't be leaking diesel, so just gotta keep it from getting all, once it gets all gunked up like this stuff, it's a pain to get off. But yep. All right, we'll start getting the shiny parts in. All right, so here it's pretty self-explanatory. We've got your banjo bolt. Make sure that's all cleaned up. Then you're gonna have your fuel pump replacement block. And it's gonna drop down in there. It's actually gonna sit this way in the truck, so. It's gonna get bolted down where the fuel pump used to be, on the passenger side. And then you're gonna have a hose running into it right there. And then the kit comes with 2 new gaskets for your banjo bolt. So let's get those in. You've got your fuel pump replacement block. It's gonna go straight down like this. You don't want to get it all the way tight, so then you can kind of have a little bit of wiggle room to get this banjo bolt in there. So for this banjo bolt, I'm sure you guys already know, but gotta get one washer on one side and one washer on the other. Make sure this one's seated down all the way. All right, let's get this started. Make sure the old washers are off, so then you don't put the clamp back onto a old washer. All right. And the reason that this turbo, or this kit is nice is on others, from what I've heard, is you have to remove the turbo. On this one, you don't, because you don't have to replace the old, or the lines that run to the back of the head. So, those you do have to remove the turbo, which could be good and bad. Maybe you want those fancy, I forget what they are, but there's a super fancy looking kit that replaces all your fuel lines with I think it gets rid of the front lines with hard lines as well, instead of the soft lines. So, come on. Now, we've got that in there. All right, so now let's show you guys, we've got the banjo bolt hand tightened down with the fuel pump replacement block in. Make sure that on these tabs here, if you just put it in by hand, then it's not that big of a deal. Slides in on each side there, so you don't crush that. And then while tightening this, be careful not to snap the block off of, be careful not to snap this.
and you want to keep this from getting snapped. And then we'll get to the regulator after this, but we might actually run the lines first before we get to the regulator. So we might start cutting out these here and moving on. No. All right, so we've got that banjo bolt tightened up. Now, I think the size of that bolt actually changes. I don't know if it's a 10 mil. I think that's yep, it's a 1/2 inch now, so. All right. So, on Marty's new version, I was able to get it mounted very nicely. Like, you can't even see it. It's hidden away with these new brackets. And then there's the billet housings. And yeah, I was able to just plumb them, put the 90s on there. 90-degree fittings on each side. Fit really nice. Show you guys the engine bay. There's your regulator, then your fuel pump replacement block. I used the same, the old headlines. You can see the 2 return and feed lines. The feed line runs to your fuel pump replacement block. Your return line runs from your regulator. So the way I mounted on each of the trucks, I ended up putting the circuit breaker and the relay under this panel here, and then I'm gonna put wire loom over the wire and clean it up. It's kind of a mess right now, but this is the work truck, so I had to get this one done and running again. But here, I'll show you guys on this truck too. This truck's got a bit more done to it. We got intercooler, intake, exhaust. I'm about to pull the turbo on it, rebuild it, put a billet wheel and a smaller exhaust housing on it. But you know, we've got the same setup, regulator and fuel pump replacement. This is a Marty's as well. Mounting it on the short bed version is a little bit more difficult. I mean, I could probably, and with this different bracket, it's kind of hard to fit in to tuck it up higher, but this one sits a little bit lower on this truck. You can see it. But yeah, I might move it maybe someday, but for right now, it works. That one, I mean, I've already put about like 500 miles on that kit and no issues. Everything works great. Yeah, I recommend it. But yeah, that's it for this video. You guys have a good one.